Welcome. I'm so glad you're joining me. For those of you who are just starting, the Orca Swim Show is a weekly show where I bring both information about how the brain works when embarking on change, especially something that is fearful, and we take it to the lab of the swimming pool. After 30 years of teaching in the pool, it's time to hop out of the water and share how the learning works in and out of the water in the same way. The water is a perfect lab to test the learning process because you get fast and immediate feedback along with very satisfying rewards when you focus on the needs of the brain-body connection and not just a list of skills. Then you can obtain lasting and satisfying results. Our pool is a warm 92. Let's hop in and go from regret and missing out to action and freedom.
Welcome back. I'm so glad that you're joining me. For those of you who just started, I'm Corey Micah, owner of Orca Swim School, and this is our weekly show where I bring both technical swim information and information about how the brain works when embarking on change. As I talked about in episode 1, we started 20 years ago with an unused tagline, swim like an intelligent mammal. Because learning anything new, especially something that evokes strong emotion, in order to create results that last, we must take into account how the brain and the body interact. This is true if you want to stop or start a habit like smoking or exercise, or if you want to reach a wildest dream like buy an RV and road trip around the country for 6 months, which we did, or to go snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef with great joy. The water is a perfect place to learn about these connections because you get fast and immediate results or immediate feedback along with very satisfying rewards. When you focus on the needs of your brain and body connection and not just a list of skills, you can bring lasting and satisfying results. So each week, I bring a lesson about how the brain and body connection work. I use examples both in and out of the water. This is because learning, changing habits, and creating your dreams happen the same in and out of the water. The water happens to be the lab that we are experts in, but learning to swim is really about how life works. I want to give you steps that you can start applying even without going to the pool, so you can create change every day. When you are ready to head to the lab of the pool, we are here too. Last week, I taught you about how our beliefs, our bias, our cultural understanding is the starting point for all things we do. In other words, the story we have dictates our actions. During the week, I asked you to simply start noticing these beliefs. Get a little curious about what you say in your head before an action. How did it go? I'm very curious. I'd love to hear if anybody started that and noticed anything. Please let me know. All right, let's get started with today's topic. What stops you from taking action and the equipment that is helpful for learning to swim? Those are our two topics. So what stops you from taking action and what equipment you need for learning to swim. Now I have matched these two topics because a common question one has when getting started on a new endeavor is, what do I need to bring, have, wear? Getting into the gear can be useful, but it can also be a distraction. Distractions are one of the things that can get in the way of us actually being in action. I have to know all the things, do all the things before I actually get started. So just a little side chunk here. When my kids were little, we used to read the story to our children about the quilt maker and a very wealthy king. He had all of the things except a quilt from the quilt maker. And yet he didn't feel happy or satisfied. He spends the first part of the book collecting all the things, trying to feel happy, and he harasses the quilt maker to try and give him a quilt, because she only gives the quilts away to people who have no physical possessions, and they seem to have great joy. Like, that's the thing. If I could have the quilt, I will feel the joy, the happiness. He spends time harassing her and punishing her to try and get her to give him a quilt so he could be happy. He finally does what she says, and he gives away all of his things, at which time he starts to feel some joy. I'll give away this tiny thing. Oh, that was interesting. And he started opening himself up to this joy. Now, we know these kinds of tales with the moral ending that having all of the things doesn't change who we believe ourselves to be, or it doesn't create our deepest feelings we long for, like love and joy or a life well lived. So, I am going to give you the information because I do want to acknowledge the part of your brain that does want to know what all the things are, what are all the possible things. But I really wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk to you about what's stopping you from taking action, from getting the things that you really want. But why did I tell you the story about the king and the quilt maker? It's not that he really wanted a quilt or he really wanted the things. It was the feeling that he really wanted. And this is where we have to start. So using our swimming as an example, we take a look when we first sit down with students and we say, what is it that you really want? And at first people say things like, I want to look like Michael Phelps, an Olympic swimmer. Most people don't really say that. They think, that's so ridiculously outside of the realm. But they do have a picture in their mind of, I want to be moving like this, and I need to know all of the things. I have arms going like this, and head moving like this, and legs moving like this. And we could focus on giving you all of those kinds of things. How to move your arms, how to move your legs, how to move your head. But you still, like the king who had all of the things, it wouldn't feel satisfying. Something would still be missing, because what you're really looking for is deeper than moving my arms and legs, and it has to come first. People are looking for, in the case of swimming, things like, I want to feel safe. I want to feel in control. I want to feel present. I want to know that I'm in charge of my body. I want to know that I am trustworthy. Trustworthy to not do things that's going to prevent me from getting air or send me to panic. This is the stuff that we have to take care of first, and we have to understand. Goes back to episode 1 with beliefs. Do I believe that I can take care of myself in the water? Well, the first hunch is no, I don't believe that I can take care of myself in the water. But if we stop and roll ourselves back for a moment and say, okay, hang on, I am an adult. And I do actually know how to take care of myself. I have been taking care of myself. I have kept myself safe around the water. I've kept myself safe by staying away, but is there any possibility that I could keep myself safe and be engaged? Now, one part of you may jump 100 steps ahead and say, oh, there's no way that I could be in the middle of the pool or the middle of the lake and keep myself safe. Well, you're right. At wherever you're at right now, that's too big of a leap. So keep rolling back, rolling back, rolling back till you find a space that you say, well, I can keep myself safe. Could you keep yourself safe sitting on the steps? Could you keep yourself safe walking and holding onto a wall? Could you keep yourself safe in the shallow end where there's a rope or something that lets you know where the drop-off is? These are the things we want to have, just tiny, tiny openings into what you really want to have, and let yourself fully experience it. So if you think, well, of course I can keep myself safe in the shallow end, but that doesn't count. You're right. It doesn't count if you are not fully present to it. If you keep making yourself wrong. But if you allow yourself to say, what I really want is to feel safe in the middle of the deep water. And I'm not there yet, but I do have a belief that I can keep myself safe. And if I keep practicing keeping myself safe and feeling safe, feeling in control, feeling present, not worried that I'm going to go to panic, what would be possible? If you felt those ways in the water, what would be possible? Well, what we see as possible every time people get into the water with this frame of mind is they start to learn things they didn't know they needed to learn things about how their body and the water work, learn things about being trustworthy and true to themselves, learn things about how buoyancy works, true buoyancy. See episode 1 if you want to get some information about how buoyancy works and how floating works. It might not be what you think it is. What gets in the way of us taking action is we have our mind's eye way over here and saying, over there is where the good stuff is. And we don't allow ourselves to come back to where I am now, let myself ask the question of what do I need for just the next mini step? What can I stay with myself to be present enough to learn the information? When I keep being in this relationship that all the good thing comes from over there, all the good stuff in the case of the king is if he gets all of the things, not if he's present to where happiness is. And happiness is in a relationship and connecting with people in the case of the king. We have to come back to right now. I want to feel safe and in control. And I want to be in a way that I can discover and be present. So these are the kinds of questions we need to be asking our brain. And noticing when we let the habit of making ourselves wrong, of saying we're not getting it right because we're not doing enough or big enough or fancy enough. No, you know in your heart, you know in you when, yep, I'm engaged in the right thing. I'm doing the thing that can keep me in action and keep me there and isn't so big and so scary. And as long as we keep in the action and keep showing up over and over and over again, the results will be there. I listen to a lot of business podcasts, and there was one recently that somebody said, overnight successes take 10 years to create or 5 years to create or something like that. From the outside, they look like overnight successes. But for the people who actually created them, they knew it came by showing up every day in a consistent and small way with a belief that said, This is who I am. I have what it takes to create the results that I want. So take a look in your own life. What would be a fun goal that you would like to see if you could roll it back and find what is the underlying belief that I want to have? What is the underlying feeling that I want to have? And how do I need to break this down into a small enough place that I could be in action with it? I'd love to hear what you pick and have fun with it. The next little segment here, I did say I'm going to go into talking about the equipment. Just so you know about some things, it's helpful to know all the things that you need to get started in terms of stuff. Then that part of your brain can settle down to do the real work of what do I need in here to get started. All right, thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Are you ready to take some action? 3 ways to the freeway. Subscribe, join a free webinar, get started online where we break down the steps, making them simple, and we support you along the journey. So maybe you'll join us in Hawaii. Jump on over to orcaswimschool.com.